All right, so we're going to wrap up the Rad Bio with the ARS, or Acute Radiation Syndrome, information here. So there are some requirements for the ARS. The radiation dose has to be large. The dose usually must be external. Okay. The radioactive materials deposited inside the body have produced some ARS effects, only in extremely rare cases. So for the majority of these things, the dose must be external. The radiation must be penetrating. It has to be high energy X-rays, gamma rays are your penetrating radiations. The entire body, or a significant portion of it, must have received the dose. And the dose must have been delivered in a short amount of time, usually a matter of minutes. Okay. The fractionated doses are often used in radiation therapy. These are large total doses, but delivered in small daily amounts over a period of time. So, a little bit different in delivery. We have our 3 acute radiation syndromes. They happen at certain levels. This is why it's called a threshold dose, because we know at this much gray, this result will happen. So the hematopoietic syndrome involves the bone marrow. It's going to cause depression of the blood-forming organs. Death is within 3 to 6 weeks, and it occurs at a dose or exposure to 1 to 10 gray. The GI death is next. That's going from 10 to 50 gray, so we're stepping it up a little bit. The small bowel is what is primarily affected, because if you remember, the small bowel is more radiosensitive, and there's going to be death within 1 week. And then the central nervous system primarily will affect the brain, death within hours of days, and this is your highest exposure at 50 gray. So knowing what area of the body it affects, the threshold dose, and then the timing of it is key here, okay? For your ARS syndrome phases, it starts with a exposure, obviously, and then the prodromal stage is sometimes called nausea, vomiting, diarrhea stage, or NVD, because the symptoms are nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. The symptoms can last for minutes up to several days, and then it goes a little hidden or latent, and sometimes in this stage the patient looks generally healthy. This could last only a few hours, or it could last up to a few weeks. And then the manifest stage occurs. And this is when the symptoms will depend on the dose and location of the ARS symptom. They can last from hours to several months. And then it's either recovery or death. And most patients who don't recover will die within several months of these big exposures. And so the recovery process can last several weeks, up to 2 years. And I think that's also why it's a nonlinear response, right? So the change in response, it's not a direct line, like you're not exposed and you get all these things right at once, right? So the severity of it, there's a threshold, and then it's a curve, it's a nonlinear. And so that the acute radiation syndrome falls under that deterministic side. So I hope that was helpful, and that's going to finish off Rad